I would do that if I were you. That's what I was warned about selling on eBay in October because, oh, the election, oh, inflation, oh, people are so distracted because the kids are back in school. You know what? I defied that logic and we did just fine on eBay. Let me show you what we sold and how. But first, I just wanted to say hello. I'm George the Antique Nomad, and every month I put 20 items on eBay in an auction format. The reason we do this is, well, several reasons. First of all, I like to be able to put things out and see what the market is doing at any given point in time. And markets go up and markets go down. So I do this consistently throughout the year in order to follow the eBay market and have a sense of where it's going at a given point in time. The other reason that we do this is because our level 2 and level 3 members are kind enough to sponsor this video. Thank you so much for your contributions that make this possible. And in return, we do this as early access bonus video for them. Then after it's been out for a while, we release it to the rest of the public so that while they get to see everything drop and list while they're watching it live, everyone else gets a chance to see it while it's in progress and then see how things wrap up. And that's what this is about. This is the wrap up. And we did well in October. In spite of the gloomy predictions, we defied the odds and we sold three-quarters of what we put out there. Let's take a look at what sold and how it sold and for what and why. I think first, though, in honor of the naysayers, let's start with the things that didn't sell, because we had 5 items out of 20 that didn't. This one almost did. This one is a CD3, as they were known in England. And here I think they were just called mini compact discs. These were essentially the replacement for single 45s when the CD revolution came. This one is Squeeze with Black Coffee in Bed Live. That's one of their most famous songs. And it's never been out of the package. We offered this at a starting price of $10. Now, someone actually did bid on this and then asked to cancel the bid because it turned out that the person they were buying it for already had it and they were looking for something else. However, I have a whole bunch of these in collection right now, and so I said, well, you send me what they're looking for and we'll set them up with something else. So this one didn't sell, but hopefully the others will. Sometimes with eBay, part of it, if you have a whole bunch of one item, one nice thing about eBay is you might find a serious buyer out there, and then you can approach them with all the other things in the collection that you have to sell. All right, our next item here, the ship in the bottle. This one I thought was really neat. It got good response as far as interest from viewers when the video dropped, but we didn't get any bids. It's a ship in the bottle. It was made in Germany in 1969. It was sold to somebody at the port of call in San Pedro, and it says so right here on the label. So I thought that was kind of neat because we really know where it came from. Now, granted, a lot of people who seriously collect ships in the bottles would like something that's really old. This is a very strange form of artwork that's been done for, gosh, probably the last few hundred years. As soon as someone figured out, hey, I've got an empty bottle and a bunch of time on my hands, well, they created the ship in the bottle, and it has been done for time immemorial since. You can see what it looks like standing up here. I think it's a really neat piece. I think it will sell as I've sold them in the past. It'll sell at a show where someone in person can look at it and really understand what it is and get their head around what makes this one interesting, especially because it's only priced at $50, which is actually a pretty good price. So that was one that got away from us. We did not get a sale on that. This little guy did not sell either. I really like him. This is Rocky the Goat from the Northern Pacific Railway. I'm sorry, Great Northern Railway. I know better than that. Great Northern was the farthest north of the American routes, and the Empire Builder still runs as an Amtrak train today from Seattle to Chicago and back. It is definitely right. It was great to go Great Northern back when Rocky was there, I think, in the late 60s, but we just didn't get a railroad fan looking for these. I do find that the railroad collectors, they seem to like the objects the best. They like the lanterns and they like the things that the people used. They'll buy the ephemera too, and I'm sure that this will sell when I get it out west to the right person. This did not sell either, and this is actually a really great piece. This is an Angolan mask, but I did not have it listed correctly at first. I originally listed it as Congolese, and one of my viewers who really likes ethnography said, well, I did a little more research, and they traded up the coast, and this one actually came from Angola. The cross-hatching is a way that you can tell. What's really neat about it, and I'm going to show you on the back, is that this was actually used in ceremony. And I think if I'd had a better understanding of all these things before, and I have to admit, sometimes I will use eBay to experiment and to learn additional things that I don't know. So I put it out with the information I had, and then I let the market fill it in. Now that I have a better identification on it, I think there's a good chance that it will sell. I might put it on eBay again in the future in another context, perhaps. But notice the darkness below the eye slits. That is from breath marks, and that's very important. If a mask has been used in ceremony rather than just being made for tourists, it's going to have evidence of having been used in ceremony. And when you're dancing around and sweating and the oils of your skin are going to get on a piece, well, you're going to see nose marks where the nose hits, and you're going to see breath marks where the breathing is, and you're going to see, if you notice on the left and right where the face and the cheeks and the ears would be, you're also going to have some marking and a little bit of darkening. So this one has all of the correct patina and wear for this piece, and I'm just glad to know a lot more about it. So to me, even though I didn't sell it, I now feel like I'm a more educated seller from having done it, and it was worthwhile. And the last item that didn't sell was this. I was a little surprised about this as well, because this is such an unusual piece. I think part of the problem, honestly, is the crispness of the picture, as you see, is not so great. And that is because it's such an up close detail. You know, cameras can do what cameras can do, but this one just, I think it didn't show as well as it looks in person. I have a feeling this will sell easily in person at least the starting price of $59, although I am unlikely to offer it as inexpensively like that in a show. I think this is a potentially $100 piece, and that is where I'll be starting the price at the show. So, you know, could have gotten a deal online, but that's okay. It's going with me, and it will be interesting to have something that is from the Tsarist age of Russia and that is a military medal. This was actually commemorating the Sophia Regiment, which was started under Alexander, which is why you have Alexander's marks large and in the center emphasized, and Nikolai, the current czar who was falling out of favor, is relegated to the upper part of the cross because Nikolai was trying to reinforce that we are of heritage from Alexander the Great and you should all rally behind me. It didn't end up working real well. This is the more unusual of the two styles of hat badges, and we know it's a hat badge because it's got this big pin, or it could have gone in a breast lapel if a uniform was cut for it, but generally these went on hats when they have this big turning device on the back and a big peg. So that one didn't sell, but that is the end of what didn't sell because everything else we put on did very well. And I am excited about that because I do believe that if you price things and describe them well and position them well, that you always have a chance to sell when you're reaching such a broad, huge market. So here is the first thing. This sold. This is a really fun piece. It's Corgi Toys. It is the original box, and it's the number 1A. Corgi Toys were named that because, of course, the Queen had corgis. Corgis were little and likable, and people in England had awareness, so Corgi Toys, well, that made lots of sense. They're a little bit bigger than Matchbox, and of course, the auto carrier here is a large piece. The auto carrier is in fantastic condition, and the boxes are in decent condition, and that's why it's sold. We'll show you what's inside the boxes because the cars did not all completely line up. There's one of the Thunderbirds. This Thunderbird was there too, but there was supposed to be a Studebaker in one of those boxes, and it turned out to be a T-Bird. I'm secretly kind of glad of that because I would have wanted to keep the Studebaker for my collection, and I really shouldn't do that because I don't want to take apart a set. You can tell that the kid played with the cars a lot. He had another car transporter that I sold for $50 in terrible condition at the Portland Antique Show. So I knew this one was going to go higher, and it did well. It got 12 bids. The only thing that might have made it go up a little bit more, let's see if we can look at those bids. Yeah, you can see here that we ended up with a whole lot of people bidding on this from the US and Canada. We had people from England who wanted to bid on it. I couldn't do it. I have had so much trouble with shipping to England, and I just was not able to change the listing right near the end to accommodate that. So that may have limited it. The English like these because they didn't get the American sets that often, so they're all over here. But the bigger interest in collecting corgi is actually in England. So this gift set would have done well there too. I'm happy with what we got. I think it's right in line for the condition of the cars in the boxes. You're basically paying for the transporter and the boxes, and then as you upgrade your cars, then eventually they'll be able to match the cars and make this a perfect set, in which case it might sell for another $100 more on top of this. Corgi toys are definitely worth buying. And this is one of several vehicle related items that I had for sale. I got a big collection, so we'll see some more kids die-cast and promotional models as we go through this. This piece I really wanted to show because I really like this piece. It is so hard to photograph this pink opalescent well with my equipment, and I've invested in some pretty decent camera equipment and lighting at this piece, and I still couldn't really get the color of this to show through. It's such a nice transparent pink that with the opalescent edge, and then when you take it, it just sort of all turns into this kind of gray matte. But you do get the sense that at least this picture may be a little better at the color. Fortunately, because I described it that way and you could see it a little better in the video, viewer bought it and they were very pleased, and I was very pleased for them. I think Duncan's Sanibel pattern is terrific. It went for $24.50. That is right in line with what that should sell for. So I was pretty happy with that. And it got 10 bids, so there was more interest than I thought there might be. I think part of it is, again, I started it as a low price. One thing, if you're feeling like you're in a season that might not be great for eBay, and I have to admit, my friend's voice was in the back of my head, I started several things at $9.99 just because I got them cheaply enough and could, and let it roll from there. And I think that really helped. An example of that is this. This auction started on Halloween. And I thought, boy, I missed the boat on this. I really should have had this out before Halloween, but at least I can put it in the thumbnail and it's topical for the day. But the auction's closing 10 days after Halloween. It's like thinking you're going to sell Christmas stuff after Christmas. Well, you know what? They do sell Christmas stuff after Christmas. And I did sell this Cage 1980s plastic jack-o'-lantern for $30 on 14 bids, and I was very pleased with that. I think one of the reasons it sold is because it had a little bit of its original label on the back that says completely handmade of American materials. A lot of folks are under the false impression that by this time we were already getting lots of stuff offshore and that this was made overseas somewhere, and it's not. This is actually American production from the 1980s, and so having that tag actually made it a little bit more legit, I think, and maybe made people aware of something that I also had not been aware of, which is that these are actually USA production. So it did well, and I was very happy that it sold, even if it was after the fact. Next up, here's an example of something that I got at a good price and decided to start at a good price, and it ended up doing better than I expected by quite a ways, actually. It's a great piece. It's a really fun pattern of dinnerware. It's just one single plate, but this is Santa Anita ware, and you see this really cool modernist fish on there. It's called California Fantasy, and it says so right on the back. Santa Anita ware was made in California, in Santa Anita, where the horse racing track was, and they did really good stuff. They had a designer called Vreni who worked for them in the early 50s. She did a very nice hand-painted swirl pattern, but they also did Hawaiian flowers. There are a lot of even though a lot of people don't know this brand, collectors who like certain subcategories of dinnerware really look for it because they did these fun pieces with Hawaiian flowers or with fish like this. So it's a neat piece. It was in perfect condition. That is a glare mark, not damage. And I'm glad that the people who read the description understood that, because that that was tough. Glare is difficult. Sometimes it's hard to adjust those things, and I didn't have time to do a lot of photoshopping and try to make it look better. So I just listed it with the way it was, and it sold just fine. In fact, it sold very well. It went for $39 because it's hard to find this pattern, and it's harder still to find it in good condition. So yes, one single plate, $39. I paid about a tenth of that. And it was only because I recognized this pattern, and it was the only piece that they had that was not chipped in some manner. So I took the one good one and founded a new home with someone who really will enjoy it, and I'm very happy for them. This was fun too, and this also did better than I thought. This got 14 bids. It's Johnny Carson, Misery is a Blind Date. It's a spoof of the Peanuts books, the little booklets about happiness is a warm blanket or all that kind of stuff. Well, this is Misery is a Blind Date. And it was a lot of fun. There's Johnny Carson. I got to talk a little bit about who he was. I know most of our viewers are old enough to remember his show and what a kingmaker he was amongst the comedian class. He really got a lot of people discovered, especially in the 1980s when stand-up comedy became big. He's the reason Jerry Seinfeld ended up having his show. So Johnny Carson was very influential, and it was fun to have something from him. Here's one picture from the inside. Misery is going to a topless bar the same day you had your eyes dilated. Well, gee, isn't that sad? Very 1960s, a little bit sexist in the humor. That's the way things were there, and that is part of why, honestly, they're collectible. And so at $20.50, I was very happy to see that sell, and I was very pleased with that price. Here's another part of this auto collection. This one is a 1964 Ford Mustang dealer promotional car. And yes, it is the classic Mustang. I love the turquoise color. This is from when the car was new. This is what they gave out at the dealerships to get you to take a look at the car, or to remember that you test drove the car, or to keep your kid happy while you test drove the car. There were lots of reasons they made these, and lots of people collected them. Lots of people also gave them to their kids, so a lot of them are in really poor condition. Now, this one, it turned out, I was asked by somebody after I did the listing, and I should have looked more carefully. I have one picture of the back here. You'll notice the back rear bumper, there's these two little pieces that come down like a dagger. That's how they were done originally on the car, and they are on the promotional car as well. The bottom of the right one was not present, and I had to make an addendum to the listing, and that's what kept the price down. That's why it sold for $54 rather than maybe closer to 100. But that's okay because, again, a true genuine representation of things the way they really are is so important. And so when I was asked that question and saw my mistake, I almost canceled the listing. But instead, what I decided to do was go to the high bidder and say, look, I realize that this has a little bit of a flaw. Here's a picture. What do you think? And they said, that's fine. I'm going to keep my bid in. And eventually, someone else outbid them and got it and was very pleased with it. But they had full disclosure by then. Here's another really cool thing. This is a Hot Wheels original 1969 sand crab with the red line wheels. And you can see here the red lines when they talk about red lines with Hot Wheels. There you go. These were so popular when they came out. This one was in pretty good shape. You can see a little bit of scratching on the plastic windshield and one little rub on the fender, but otherwise the condition was really nice on this. I, of course, disclosed all of those things. I tried to take pictures so that you would be able to see all of it, and I can see just looking at the pictures myself that it worked. And it sold for $68 in this condition. If it had been in perfect condition, again, it might have gone for double that price. These are really hot right now. People are really into the late 60s automotive, whether it's a real car and you see it selling for $100,000 at Barrett Jackson auctions in Arizona, or it's a toy version of that car. I think that they're really fun. I remember them as a kid, and so do a lot of other people. So I was very pleased with the results on that. This was interesting because it did sell, and it sold because of the eBay auctions, and it sold to a viewer, but it didn't sell technically during the auction. She missed the very end of the auction when she intended to bid. It's a writing tablet with Gene Autry from about mid 40s to early 50s. Look at those great boots. Wouldn't you like to have those? Those would be worth a fortune even if they weren't Gene Autry's. Uh, Gene Autry was one of my aunt's favorites, so I always notice him. He was certainly before my time, but I shouldn't really say that because his most famous song is one that we've all heard, which is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And so Gene Autry for $10 went to live with this gal. She contacted me right after the auction closed, said, "I'm so sorry, I really wanted to bid. Would you still sell it to me?" I said, "Yes." We relisted it and she bought it immediately, and it went for the minimum opening price. And it's just a writing tablet. And Gene Autry's far enough back in time that not everybody remembers him. So $10 to me was a perfectly fine price and in line with what I would have expected to get for that anywhere I sold it. This set is really fun, and I had a good time showing this because this came from Seattle. This is La Rocco. And here is the pin and earring set. You can see how really nice the crystals were that they used. La Rocco was a Seattle maker of costume jewelry. In fact, the only costume jewelry company of any note from the Northwest that I'm aware of. And in very small letters on the back, it actually says La Rocco. It's right side up on this one and upside down on that one, but you can see it in the middle of the flange. Now, the earring backs are similar to Juliana, so it was good that this was signed because people were mistaking it for Juliana. It did not sell for as much as a Juliana pin would, and it really shouldn't sell for as much because they're not stacked in the same way. They're not as geometric, but they do have great color. It's a good company worth looking for. It's something I wanted to put out there so that if you see La Rocco, because it was distributed all over the place, and you might find pieces, and I wanted people to be aware that, oh yeah, that's a name to look for and what the background was. $39 for this set is a fine price to get. It sold after 12 bids. I thought that that was right about, I would have priced it between 39 and 49 if I had it at a show or in a store because the crystals were good, but it is round. And I will say that round shapes do not sell as well as other shapes unless there's something really fantastic about them. And this one's very nice, but it's not extraordinary in design. So I thought that was a good price to get. It went to Portland, Oregon to a viewer, actually not a viewer, I don't believe. I think that went to somebody who just recognized the brand and liked the color and thought it would be nice to have. Here is the Matchbox 60 Special, the last of the die cast from this collection that I put on eBay. And it did well as well. It went for $77 on only 6 bids. I wanted to be very careful about representing the condition of this because it's a good early piece and I knew there'd be interest, and it has the box. Now the flap from the box is loose, so I made a point of having a picture that showed that. The car was played with a little bit, so this side looks almost perfect except for one little fender scratch, but this side, well, you can tell it's got another fender scratch, a little bit of wear along the roof line, and a little fender scratch in the front. So very good condition, but not completely pristine. So the neat thing about this, of course, is it's early, and so it has the gray wheels, which are unusual. That's the first generation, and that's why these are interesting to people. And I thought $77 was a wonderful price. It was actually a little more than I expected to get, given that the condition wasn't absolutely perfect. So I was very pleased with that. Matchboxes are called that because they had to be the size of a matchbox because school children in England could not bring a toy larger than a matchbox to school with them. So they wisely designed it and scaled it to fit in a matchbox or something the size of one, and it took off, and they've been very collectible ever since. Our second to last sale is this piece here. Now, this one's pretty wild. This one also, I have to say, is one of the few where I was a little disappointed by the final outcome, although I'm very happy for the person who got it because they got a really neat piece of psychedelic art from 1971 by an obscure outfit in Ohio, and they got it at a really great price. I think, honestly, if they were to hold on to this a little bit, maybe present at I'm not sure if it was the timing that was off or something about the way I described it that didn't really. I think the fact that I put NOS in the caption instead of new old stock may have been confusing. I'm not sure if people thought maybe it was a reproduction or didn't understand what that meant. But it is a really cool piece. Now it's quite garish and loud because it's psychedelic colors, Dayglow colors from 1971, but it does have the signature of the artist on that side, and it does have the printed Vagabond Creations information on the lower left. If I were to list this again or any of these again, the truth is I probably wouldn't put them on eBay. I find that these things sell typically for about 150 to $200 at shows or in modernist galleries where people who are really into this stuff have some time to contemplate them. So I didn't hit this one quite right. I still made a profit. I got it to somebody who really will love it, but the other three I'm going to sell in a different manner. And that brings us to our last piece. Now, this one sold for more than expected. So, you know, come see, come saw. When you're looking at these things, you can't get too hung up over an individual item. You really have to look at the bulk of what you sold and how you did. And, overall, sales were in, I think, the 750 or $800 range. I was very pleased with that. And that was partly because this piece went for 165, which you think, oh, that seems cheap for a Picasso. But for this Picasso, that was actually top end of what I was expecting. It's a wonderful piece. It's in a frame. It has a certificate of authenticity. There's really no question about these being authentic, though, because Picasso put out an edition in 1944, and we'll show you that here, called the Editions du Chêne Paris, and this one is signed, and it's the Harlequin on the horse. Great piece. It sold for what it should. In fact, it's sold on the high side of what it should, but right in there where it should be. And it's going to a viewer, and I'm really happy for her. And she actually is going to save the shipping because she lives close enough that we're going to get together and she'll get to pick it up. Picasso prints can be hundreds of dollars. There are some editions from the early 1960s that were sold at the Seattle World's Fair. They typically sell for about 500 a piece. You see them in a lot of homes in Seattle still. This is the type of thing where some of these editions were made in large amounts, and so they don't sell for as much as you might think, because you're thinking, well, Picasso's a famous artist. Well, yes, he is, but he also was quite prolific. On the other hand, some Picasso prints that are rare, where there are editions of maybe a few hundred or under 100, can be quite valuable. I have seen some really interesting pieces of his. In fact, I had one of the pottery pieces of his about that big come up in an appraisal, and it appraised for $5,000. So when you're talking about major artists, this is a good indication of the difference between the print market and the original market. An original Picasso would be six figures or more in all likelihood. So somebody got a really nice piece that they can enjoy. I got a reasonable price for the item, and I was very happy with that. And I have to say, in general, I was very happy with how all of this went, and I will continue to sell on eBay month in and month out, whether people think it's a good idea or not, because we all have different experiences. And I have to say, it's really easy to get in your head and convince yourself not to take action. I have to say, in my life, if I've made any errors, it's been on the side of jumping into things and taking action first, but it has really worked out better for me in most regards. So I'm just going to keep being that way. In the meantime, I hope that you'll check me out again. I will have a level 2, level 3 bonus video coming out very soon for you folks with the 20 eBay listings for November. So check for that. If you're a member, you can find out about that because we will put a post in the membership tab. If you are not a member, then please consider becoming one, you can check out the information in the description of this video or any of our others. If you enjoyed this video, check out this one. Also, click thumbs up to like this video and check the description for information about our Patreon, our memberships. We've got a lot of different levels with different perks and bonus videos and early content. Also, please do check out our website, theantiquenomad.com, for appraisal help. And we'll see you again for more adventures in the antique and vintage community soon. Bye for now.